Good evening. My name is Garrett, and welcome to The Last Call. On tonight's verses, we have Laphroaig 10 Sherry Oak Finished Single Malt Whiskey coming in at a 48% ABV, 10-year age statement, versus Laphroaig PX Cask Finished Single Malt Scotch Whiskey coming in at a 48% ABV. I think 10-year age statement on this one as well. So, I'm a big Laphroaig fan. More recently, my wife is converting me. She is a Laphroaig girl. She loves what Laphroaig does, and we have several of their expressions. More recently, a buddy of mine was traveling through Europe, and I said, hey, if you see this on the shelf, grab me a bottle of it, because we can't normally find this here in the United States, and when you do, it's twice, 3 times as expensive as what they charge overseas in the UK and some areas like that. So for the most part, this is a travel exclusive with some oddities in there. The reason I question that 10-year age statement because you don't necessarily see it on the front. However, on the back, it does lightly talk about them taking their Laphroaig 10, putting it into quarter casks, and then moving it into Pedro Ximénez casks. Whereas over here on the standard Sherry Oak, we know that they use ex-bourbon, and then they just go to the Oloroso, so they skip over that quarter cask finishing process as well. Interesting to know, but I wanted to put these two up against each other because here in the United States, we can usually find this bottle on a lot of shelves. It seems becoming a little bit more open for most areas. So let's go ahead and get into things. As always, we're going to be trying it here, comparing them on notes, taste, and kind of finishing things up on pricing. And as always, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, all that kind of good stuff. If you're interested in the individual reviews over these, they'll be linked up above and down below. You can also look at some of my other Laphroaig reviews. This one is not live yet, but because I actually haven't recorded it because I just got this in like a couple days ago. But I wanted to do an A/B comparison to get these out there. Get a little bit more in there. There we go. I'm really interested in seeing the comparison on these two for one big reason, because they're pretty identical. The only real thing that this one's doing that this one isn't is the PX Sherry and the quarter cask finishing, where this one is just doing the Oloroso, because we got supposedly both 10-year age statements and both at 48%. I mean, color alone, the Sherry Oaked version is super dark compared to the PX Sherry. There is a significant difference on color on those. This one is definitely lighter than the standard 10, but you can definitely, between these two, on color, that Sherry Oak is gnarly dark. So, let's go for notes on the PX Sherry cask version. You get that sweetness in there, and I love PX Sherry cask finishing. It's sweet and cherries and orchard fruit, but darker orchard fruit, almost plum, and that dark, deep cherry notes in there. You get a bit of the earthy, salty, peaty notes that Laphroaig's known for. You don't get much of the iodine, which I tend to find in Laphroaig. Maybe a little bit in there, a little medicinal, but beautiful nose. Very sweet, inviting, but if I was blindfolded, I don't know if I could tell you that was a Laphroaig in that glass. It's beautiful, don't get me wrong, but it's hard to pick out what makes Laphroaig in that bottle. All right, let's go for notes on the Sherry cask version. It's got a little bit deeper waxiness. You still get some of the dark fruits that show up in there, but not quite as dark fruits as the PX Sherry. No real ABV, maybe a little bit heavier peated note. A little bit heavier in that. A little salty, a little sweet, but the waxiness that the Oloroso is bringing across is definitely more defined than the PX Sherry version. Oh yeah, and even going back to it now, it is definitely sweeter and lighter as well. And I'm actually starting to find a little bit of the iodine in there. But this is darker, heavier, but not in necessarily the fruit notes, but almost a darker oak note. And I'm starting to get a little bit of the iodine in there, but it's so faint. Very, very faint. But actually, it's a really nice nose as well. I would probably, if I was blindfolded, I think I could pick this one out being Laphroaig quicker than this one. Just a little bit, not much difference, but that one definitely shows more Laphroaig characteristics than the PX Sherry. So, let's go for taste on the PX version. Beautiful mouthfeel. There it is. So definitely not as sweet on the taste. You get a little bit of those orchard notes, that bit of dark cherry, and the plum notes are kind of showing up here. But it's rich, and it's got a beautiful velvety mouthfeel to it. Then the saltiness kicks in. So you're getting this big old burst of peat, smoky, salty, that bit of barrel char showing up as well. It tingles the palate. Feels great, honestly. You get a little bit more of the iodine on the taste. Just a little bit. But the Laphroaig characteristics besides that iodine are really showing up. It's surprisingly not as sherry forward on the PX as I was expecting it to be before I popped it open. But honestly, it's still a really good fruitier version of Laphroaig 10. The saltiness is still there, the peatiness, the earthiness. So if you love Laphroaig but always want it to be a little sweeter, that's a great option for it. Not many other characteristics going on, and it might have drowned out too much of that from that PX cask. The thing I love about it the most, though, is how rich and heavy and dark those PX notes are showing up. Very fruity, dark fruits. And again, I love how it plays on the palate. All right, let's go for taste on the sherry oak version. Ooh. Before this happened, this one won my heart at Laphroaig. And I gotta say, it's a damn close race. The waxiness here plays really well. You're still getting a little bit of nuttiness and the fruitiness, getting those dark, rich notes in there. And then it opens up with that Laphroaig iodine and that bit of medicinal going on. Peat smoke, it's heavier. Honestly, it makes me feel like this one is at a higher ABV because it's got a little more heft to it. But the waxiness and those fruit notes comparatively to the PX are different, especially in that waxy note. It feels thicker on the palate too, but when you're just comparing those two casks, this, in my opinion, showcases a little bit more of sherries than this does. Not saying this is bad now, but definitely in my opinion, again, I'm a PX sherry fan, this one just doesn't have the same characteristics that I would love to find in this one. But I love the waxiness here, which I found in some Oloroso casks bring across that waxy nuttiness to it. And you don't get that in the PX version. But even going back to this one, instantly you're getting all those beautiful fruit notes right from the get-go. I love this one's mouthfeel. I love the richness and the Laphroaig characteristics that are showing up. All right, before we get the market price, just based on tastes, it's a pretty close race, I'll be honest. You know, if I was blindfolded, I still think I would pick this out as Laphroaig first before this one, but it's a good comparable pass. If you're in the United States or a place that cannot get the PX version, and you can get this, I think you're going to be happy, honestly. Now, if you can pick this up, the subtle softness that the PX brings across in those fruit notes really plays well here. But at the end of the day, I'm going to call it a tie. Either way, you're getting a beautiful expression of Laphroaig done up in a sherry cask. So let's talk about market price, because we all know market price is market price, and definitely in Laphroaig territory, it's always going to vary. In my market, I picked this up for about $79 at Total Wine. Now, I see a lot of places mark this up into the 80s, 90s, $105. This one, however, tends to be about $130 after conversions for us here in the United States. So if I could pick this up for $80, let's just say, and I could pick this up for $130, I would say go with this version. However, you do get a liter of this because it is a travel exclusive, and again, you can find it like at Whiskey Exchange and a few other places. I think this is a great sip. Either way, I don't think you're going to be disappointed. If you're a Laphroaig fan, these are both great examples. for the money, this is definitely worth the 130 asking price. And for the money, I would say this is worth at least $85 to $90. And again, at that price point though, you're getting up close to the cask strength version of the 10, but I still love that sherry oak. Both are great examples of what Laphroaig can do under a watchful eye and unique sherry finishing for them. And I give both of them a big thumbs up. If you ever get the opportunity to pick this up or to taste this, do it. Same thing with this one. If you're a Laphroaig fan, you're going to feel right at home, and those fruit characteristics that come across in those sherry casks both get a big thumbs up in my book. So yeah, there you have it, folks. Laphroaig 10 sherry oak finished, and Laphroaig, I'm going to say 10 PX cask finished. If you have questions about either bottle, please let me know down in the comment section below. I will do my best to answer it. And if you have any bottles I should put up against each other, let me know down in the comment section below. I love doing these A/B comparisons. It helps me learn and hopefully helps you make a better decision on your purchasing. And as always, may your last drink of the night be the best one.
You know, and I really like it might not.